All right, everybody. We're here for episode 31 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. This week we are going to do our favorite, or some of our favorite, heist movies. We're going to talk about things that we like about them and recommend them, obviously, for you guys. If you want to find them, we'll tell you, if we can, where to find them. If not, you'll just have to do it on your own. All right, Wayne, why don't you get us started this week?
All right. This movie stars one of the greatest actors. Not really. But the things he did for his country were fantastic. I am talking about the Fast and the Furious franchise, specifically Fast 5. 2011. It is the 5th movie in the franchise. Shocking how that works. So for those not familiar with the Fast and the Furious franchise, we're talking Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. We introduce Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or I think this is the one he was introduced in. Right?
This is his intro to the series.
Yeah, we got Ludacris, we got Tyrese Gibson, Matt Schultz from the first movie comes back as Vince.
Yep.
Gal Gadot.
You get the intro of Hemsworth's wife. I forget her name at the moment, but she's the female that Vin Diesel kind of falls in love with because Michelle Rodriguez is presumed dead. The cop.
Elsa Pataki.
Yes.
As Elena. All right, so the Fast and Furious franchise is a little bit hit and miss because the first one got everybody's blood pumping. It was street racing. Yeah, I'm going to put lights on my car. And then they made the second one. And then they made a third one with nobody in it from the first two movies. Except for Vin Diesel has a cameo at the end to let you know there's more coming. 4 brought a lot of the original cast back together, or at least Paul Walker and Vin Diesel as Dom Toretto and
Brian something.
Brian Earl Spillner, and Brian O'Connor is his real name, but yeah. So Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker's character, starts out as a cop, chooses a life of crime and to back up his buddy. All right, Fast 5 though. So, excuse me, it takes a little bit of time to keep all of these straight because they're working on 9 and 10 in the franchise. Yeah, ridiculous. Mike, you and I have talked about this before. I think Fast 7 was the perfect end to this franchise.
Yeah.
But if it's making money, they're going to keep making them. But I'm going to give you the little rundown story synopsis real quick here about why this is a fantastic movie, a fantastic heist movie. Former cop Brian O'Connor partners with ex-con Dom Toretto on opposite sides of the law. Since Brian and Mia Toretto broke Dom out of custody, they have blown across many borders to elude authorities. They're in Brazil. They must pull one last job in order to gain their freedom. As they assemble an elite team of top racers, the unlikely allies know their only shot of getting out for good means confronting a corrupt businessman who wants them all dead. So, the biggest misdirection pull move that I've seen in a movie in a long time. They're towing a 20-ton safe down the streets of Rio de Janeiro. They go into an underpass and they come out within like 10 seconds and the cops will still chase them. In that time, something happens. Maybe I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, it's a great movie. A lot of action. If you're in a car, it's good there.
Yes.
If you're in, living your life a quarter mile at a time, it's good for you there. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorites in the Fast and Furious series. That's what I got for you for my first one.
I would say, the dragging the safe down the street is probably the best, craziest scene from that movie. And it's just fantastic. It's a showstopper for sure. It really kind of lets you know where you stand with the movie that you're watching. I remember one of my criticisms when I first saw this movie was it's called Fast and the Furious. It's all about cars. And there's like a 20-minute foot chase in the beginning of the movie. And I was like, are we missing something here, guys? Usually there's cars involved. But yeah, that's when they
fast on their feet.
Yes, that's when they, she tells him that she's pregnant too. So that, what's her name? The sister, Jordana Brewster's character. The Rock was a great addition to the franchise, and I think I know they're kind of on the outs now, but like that's fine, whatever. He kind of set up this whole story from when he started, and he's kind of not taking it, but he's been basically equal with Vin Diesel, I would say. These last 4 movies, wherever at.
Hobbs and Shaw with nothing with the Dom Toretto character.
Yes, and that's because there were people that were upset with that or whatever, but fun movie, really fun movie. Not my personal favorite of the franchise. I know a lot of people prefer this one, and it was the one that got a lot of people back into the franchise. So I will give it credit for that, and it is an entertaining film, I think. But my first movie this week is going to be a movie I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. They may remember it when I start talking about it. It's Heist from 2001. So make sure if you're looking for it, you're looking for 2001, because there's one from 2015, straight to DVD with De Niro and Batista, which is terrible. This one, directed by David Mamet, written by David Mamet, starring Gene Hackman, Danny DeVito, Delroy Lindo, Sam Rockwell, Rebecca Pidgeon, and the late Ricky Jay. Ricky Jay is an actor people will all know from either Mamet movies or Paul Thomas Anderson films. So why I like this movie so much is when you have a heist movie, there's 2 ways to go about it. One, it's straightforward, or as we'll get in some other movies, there's a lot of twists and turns. And this one has so many twists and turns. It's almost too smart for its own good at times. It's constantly winking at you, but it's just so enjoyable. Hugh Jackman, not Hugh Jackman, Gene Hackman. No relation to Hugh Jackman as far as I know. Gene Hackman and Delroy Lindo and Danny DeVito are fantastic. Sam Rockwell, I totally forgot he was in this movie, is really good as well. Rebecca Pidgeon, who plays, I believe she was married to or is married to David Mamet, but she's been in a lot of his movies. She's really good as the kind of femme fatale. She plays Gene Hackman's character's wife. There's a lot of back and forth there too. It's just such a cool movie. It really kind of reminds me of the heist movies of the time. It's very similar to something like Ocean's 11, in the amount of twists and turns that it has. Just a really cool movie. Like Delroy Lindo was probably my favorite character in this movie. It was one of Gene Hackman's last movies, as Welcome to Mooseport was only like 3 years later, and that was, as everybody knows, the career killer for Gene Hackman, where he decided to walk away. But Heist is a really entertaining film. Lots of fun if you like to think. The dialogue is a little bit not as good as some Mamet films, but it's still the delivery and the performances from the actors is really what sells this movie. And it's just really cool. I've always dug it. I haven't seen it in a while. I got a chance to watch it for the first time in probably about like 18 years or something like that. Just a cool movie. You could find it on Stars or Encore. If you have Encore on TV, I believe if you get the Stars app, it's up there. That's how I watched it. Really cool movie. All right, Wayne, what's your number 2?
All right, I am going with the 2013 Now You See Me. This movie was directed by Louis Leterrier, written by Ed Solomon and Boaz Yankin, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Common, Mark Ruffalo, Woody Harrelson, Ella Fisher, Dave Franco, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Michael Kelly. This was great. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I know it's a different type of magic that we're talking about, but we're still talking about illusions and magic. Crazy fun stuff. Here is the breakdown. 4 magicians each answer a mysterious summons to an obscure address with a secret inside. A year later, they are the Four Horsemen, a big-time stage illusionists show whose climax at their sold-out Las Vegas show with a bank apparently being robbed for real. This puts FBI agents Dylan Rhodes and Interpol agent Alma Dre on the case. However, the mystery proves to be difficult to solve, even with the insights of professional illusion exposer Thaddeus Bradley, played by Morgan Freeman, played fantastically by Morgan Freeman. This has more twists and turns than a roller coaster, but not so much that you get confused, like the movie that I'm going to talk about coming up. However, I gotta say, the this movie has a sequel as well that came out in 2016, and they chose the perfect villain. Daniel Radcliffe plays the bad guy. And I wanted to bring that up real quick because I thought that is the most excellent casting, and the fact that they got him to do it was outstanding. But there is a scene where they're trying to pass around an ID card, and they're doing all these crazy card tricks and flips and snaps. And I don't remember if it's in the first one or the second one. I think it might actually be the second one. But it's just stuff like this that makes this movie fantastic. And they end up stealing millions and millions of dollars. They work this into their show in Las Vegas. I don't want to talk about this too much because it's still, reasonably new, and I'm not sure how many people have actually seen this. I definitely recommend Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2. Very cool, very entertaining. You guys got to check this movie out.
Yeah, it's a good set of films. The first one obviously being better than the second one, but I enjoyed the second one too. What's great about this movie, I think, is we get Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg, who are very good together. Did 2 Zombieland movies together, 2 Now You See Me movies together. Isla Fisher is great in the first one. Lizzie Kaplan does a nice job filling in the sequel as a different character. Dave Franco, always fun to watch as the lesser-known Franco brother. I think at this point maybe he's kind of on the same level, but it's just a fun franchise. And whenever you could bring Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine, 2 of Christopher Nolan's favorite actors, into a movie, I mean, it's great. And it was a lot of fun. It reminded me a lot of like Ocean's 11, that style of heist film. You got to pay attention. And Mark Ruffalo was great. I want to mention him because he's just such a great actor anyway. The stuff that goes on with him reminded me kind of a lot of like The Prestige, which is another really kind of good, not necessarily a heist movie, more of a magician movie, but another kind of good magician magic movie.
I think the thing with heist movies is you got to have that awesome twist.
You do.
And if you don't get that, you're just not going to achieve what you're going for. And I think obviously all the films that we've chosen so far, and we'll talk about, do a great job pulling that off. And
I think the next one I'm going to talk about, which is the 1998 film Ronin, starring the legendary Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Natasha McElhone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, and Jonathan Pryce, directed by John Frankenheimer. It's a little, also, you know what, and I didn't even realize this, he's credited as Richard Weiss, written by David Mamet. So 2 of my movies have been scripted by David Mamet. I didn't even realize that this was partly him. This movie is about a bunch of like military guys, former criminals that kind of are asked to help in a heist and breaking someone out. And there's a lot of your 2 main characters are Jean Reno and Robert De Niro, basically, because they're the guys that are part of this crew. And there's a lot there's a lot of like screwing over, like, behind the scenes type stuff. They kind of, how we felt duped in some of the movies that we've talked about. I feel like the characters get to feel the dupe as we kind of see it coming, but it's more of a surprise to them when they get turned on. But the cool part about it is the fact that basically Jean Reno and Robert De Niro, who don't know each other in the movie, they're freshly meeting, decide to basically exact revenge and take these guys down. I thought it was a really cool aspect to a heist movie. It has one of the greatest car chase scenes in cinema history. It's usually up there with The French Connection. They take a car through downtown Europe somewhere. It's really just a crazy scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie. This is another one I wanted to talk about because I don't feel like it gets talked about that much anymore. I know it was kind of popular when it came out. I've watched it probably once every like 2 or 3 years. It's really just a fun movie. De Niro is so good. This was back when every movie he did, he gave his all. There's some movies like the 2015 heist movie I talked about. He does not give us all. But back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, he was definitely 100% into everything. And there's just a great performance from him. Him and Jean Reno are great together. Great chemistry. It's basically like the kind of sidekick characters. Just a really fun movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm not sure if it's streaming anywhere, but definitely check it out. Wayne, you remember this movie?
I do. And I like what you touched on there about talking about, like, this movie isn't talked about enough because other than the car chase scene and being one of the best ones ever compared to, like, Bullet and stuff like that, that's all you ever hear is that the car chase scene. The car chase scene, it's like, there's so much more to this movie, guys. You're looking at.
And it's what's great about it too is I go a year or two without seeing it. Sometimes I forget everything, or not everything, but I forget some of the main twists. So you're surprised again. You know, it's not something like The Sixth Sense, which I've seen like 100 times. So my wife loves that movie. This one, you know, I've seen it a few times, probably like maybe I'd say 10, but I don't remember it 100% every time I watch it. So it kind of makes it fresh and it's fun to watch again. And I really enjoy that about a movie, and I think that really works here with Ronin.
Absolutely. So, yeah, if you guys have not seen it, or you have not seen it in a long time, you definitely got to check out Ronin. I know I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm definitely going to check it out this week coming up. All right, I saved this choice for last for a number of reasons. I'm going with 2007, Ocean's 13, the third of the franchise, and the last one with George Clooney and Brad Pitt and all the gang together. Rarely do you get sequels, or like the third movie in the franchise is the best one. In my opinion, Ocean's 13 is fantastic. Now, the first one was made in 2001. This one was made in 2007, and then the second one was made, I think, around 2004-ish.
Yeah, that sounds about right. About 3 years apart in between each. Yeah.
Now, one is actually a remake of the 1960 film Ocean's 11, starring all of the Las Vegas crooners. You had Frank Sinatra, you had Angie Dickinson was in there, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Peter Lawford was in there. Star-studded cast. But honestly, watching it, I was really bored. So obviously, you get the 2001 version with you got Clooney, you got Pitt, Bernie Mac,
Cheadle. Don Cheadle, Casey Affleck, Scott Conn.
That's right. We're in Bonnie Rubble.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's just run through the cast really quick. Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Matt Damon, Elliot Gould, Al Pacino, Don Cheadle, Eddie Jameson, Casey Affleck, Shabu Quinn, Scott Conn, Bernie Mac, Eddie Lizard, Carl Reiner, Maggie Rowe. This is a Soderbergh film.
Yep.
Written by Koppelman, David Levien, and George Clayton Johnson. So, here is the rundown. The last time we saw Danny Ocean's crew, they were paying back the ruthless casino mogul Terry Benedict. Terry Benedict, played by
Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia. I always get him confused, or I always forget his name. Apologies, Mr. Garcia. Sorry about that. All right, so they're paying back Terry Benedict after stealing millions from his casinos. However, it's been a while since they've been back together, which is all about to change when one of their own, Ruben Tishkoff, builds a hotel with another casino owner, Willie Bank, the untrustworthy Willie Bank, who doesn't live up to the Vegas, unwritten rule. You shook Sinatra's hand. Sinatra's hand, get out of here. Just spitting all over that unwritten bond. Bank's attitude goes so far as to find amusement in Ruben's mental breakdown and heart attack. Danny Ocean and his crew won't stand for this deception from Bank. Uniting with their old enemy, Terry Benedict himself, who has a vendetta against Bank, pulls off a major plan, one that will unfold the night of Bank's newest casino opening. They're not in this for the money. They're in this for the revenge. Fantastic. If you're not familiar with the Ocean's movies, they're very quippy, they're very chippy, they're very chirpy. Lots and lots of misdirection. But 1 and 3 do a fantastic job. 2 is extremely hard for me to follow. There's so much in there in so many different directions. You get pushed. My head starts to spin. I don't want to say it wasn't as well executed as the first one and the third one. It's just there's just something about the second one that doesn't live up to it.
See, and
what's that?
So I was just gonna say I love the second one just as much as the first and third one. I know a lot of people shit on that one, but I'll talk about it here in a second. Why don't you finish up?
Oh, absolutely. I hope I'm not coming across as crapping on it. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just for somebody as simple as I am, it's hard for me to follow. You got so many little character nuances in this film, just the little relationships, like Casey Affleck and Scott Conn's, they're brothers in the movie, and just they're big back and forth, and just they're taunting, like, you balloon boy, balloon boy. Where's my balloon? Subtle things they read it right in the script that seem meaningless, but the way the actors portray it and really come across as brothers, it's fantastic. You've got Don Cheadle with, like we talked about, he's his British Cockney thing going on there. Frank Catton, Bernie Mac. Everybody who knows me knows that I love Bernie Mac. I love the Man of Death. We've talked about him on other podcasts that we've been on. Just really makes the movie for me. Would you say that Matt Damon's character finally comes to fruition, finally gets his, just chance to prove himself with the crew?
I think so. I think in the end he's kind of vindicated after needing help in the second movie to kind of pull off the plan. With Brad Pitt and George Clooney, I kind of always feel like Matt Damon's the forgotten one, but he's still very much a star of this movie, obviously, or of this franchise.
He finally proves to his dad that he can pull off the heights. He's on his level. And, just that little character growth. We don't have a ton of character development in these movies. They're all pretty much developed and are who they are. Yeah. In my
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I like how they incorporated all the antagonists from the first two movies into this one, because the cat burglar, or what is the guy's pseudonym from the second movie?
I forget what it is. Vincent Cassel is the actor, though. Yeah.
He's involved trying to steal the Five Diamond Award, but he doesn't get them because
Well, it's the Fabergé egg, right? Isn't it the whole switcheroo?
Yeah.
That was the thing. So about the second one, I worked at Blockbuster when that came out, and most people missed, I think, that they got away with the Fabergé egg in the end, because most of the complaints I heard was they didn't even steal anything. I'm like, but I guess that goes to where you're saying maybe it's a little more confusing, that people don't realize that at the end of the movie that the Fabergé egg that Vincent Cassel gets is not the real one. And that they still not only did they find a way to pay back Terry Benedict, but they also walked away with how much ever that Fabergé egg was worth. So that was kind of the whole kind of steal thing that they did, the twisty-turny heist part of that movie. And I thought that was genius. A lot of people did not like it. I do like 1 and 13, or 1 and 13. 11, I guess it would be 11 and 13. Better than 12, but I do think 12 is almost as good as the first and the third one. But yeah, the quality series, I think, all around.
My favorite, one of the things, the gentleman in the third one, the inspector for the hotel, not, Saul, who's impersonating the inspector, the actual guy that they do all this rotten stuff to. They don't forget him at the end. They actually rig the slot machine in the airport to win, and he ends up winning, $14 million or $11 million at the end. It's like, all right, so they do all this, garbage to this innocent guy, but at least they redeem him there at the end, or at least, pay him back.
Yeah.
I'd go through that for, $10 million. I don't know about you.
For sure. No, I would as well.
All righty. So, yeah, the Oceans franchises. They did make an Oceans 8, which a lot of people weren't fond of. I thought it was creative. I thought it was nice to see,
I haven't seen it yet, so.
A fully loaded female cast. Maybe we'll talk about it in the future. But, yeah, give it a shot.
All right. I'm going to go on to our last one here, but, a couple honorable mentions. Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, Dog Day Afternoon, Tower Heist. I know, Wayne, you talked about possibly talking about that one. The Thomas Crown Affair. There's so many to go over, but those are just some of the ones that kind of come to my brain. Usually I'll have like a list. This time I don't have a list. It's just kind of the ones I remember.
When we were talking about doing this, I was like, oh, wow. I don't know which ones we're going to do. And then I did like 2 minutes of research. I'm like, there are so many good ones to choose from that you just forget about. And I know I'm guilty of that. So I was like, we had a difficult time choosing my three.
Yeah, The Saint with who stars Val Kilmer, which is in the movie I'm going to talk about right now, which is, I think, probably one of the most classic heist films / bank robbery films, bank heist films that's been made. And I think people continually try to top this movie. And that is 1995's Heat, directed by Michael Mann, produced by Michael Mann and Art Linson. Art Linson also produced Heist. So a lot of tie-ins to my heist movies this week that I wasn't planning on. Also written by Michael Mann, starring Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Tom Sizemore, Diane Venora, Amy Brennan, Ashley Judd, Michael T. Williamson, Wes Studi, Ted Levine, John Voight, Val Kilmer, Danny Trejo is also in it. There's a bunch of other character actors in this movie that it doesn't list all of them right there. This movie, or Ashley Judd, sorry, I'll keep going. Ashley Judd, Ted Levine, Dennis Haysbert, William Fichtner, Natalie Portman, Tom Noonan, Kevin Gage, Hank Azaria, Henry Rollins, Tone Loc, Jeremy Piven, Xander Berkeley. They look at all these actors are named actors that you would know if you looked them up. You may not know them by name, all of them, but if you looked them up, you'd recognize them. So Heat is about a bank heist movie. The two main characters Heat is about a bank heist. The two main characters are Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, and De Niro's character is kind of like Pacino's like white whale. Like they know of him, they want to catch him. It's Vincent Hanna is Al Pacino and Neil McCauley is Robert De Niro. And so it's like this big thing that they want to battle each other essentially. And Pacino the most famous scene I think people know about is the first time that Al Pacino and Robert De Niro ever appeared on camera together. And that was the dinner scene where they basically say, I'm coming at you, but it's not personal. It's, it's more of like, this is just how it's got to be. I'm a cop. You're a bad guy. This is the way it's going down. It's such a great scene. It really sets the tone for the last part of the movie. It has one of the greatest bank heist scenes in cinema history. It really does. It's just an all-out street shootout battle. It's kind of, there was one where these two guys were, I don't know if you remember, Wayne, from like, it was either late 80s, early 90s, where they wore like these tin like armor suits, and they basically went on this like rampage after robbing a bank. It kind of reminds me of that, because the scene itself is like 30 minutes probably of these characters: Tom Sizemore, Al Pacino, Val Kilmer, Robert De Niro, kind of all just running around the city. Den of Thieves recently with Gerard Butler tried to do it also. It's good in that movie, but not as good. You're never going to beat the original, is the way I look at it. And it's such a good scene. The performances in this movie are fantastic. Val Kilmer is always great. It's kind of somewhat sad to see what he's become. I know he's had like cancer issues and stuff, so that may not be stuff he was able to control. Right. But he such a great career arc until he was kind of too difficult to work with, so people started not working with him.
That was for sure that he was kind of a diva and he was difficult to work with, and that's unfortunate because he was a really talented guy. I mean, I'd still probably be his wingman anytime.
Yeah. He's so good in this. He's kind of like the center of it, even though he's the third main character, I would say, but he is kind of like the heart of it, because he and his wife, like, they're trying to like get enough money to like basically just kind of get out of town and like have a life essentially. So they're what I do like about this movie is that you have, obviously they give a lot of character to De Niro, but they give a lot of character to Sizemore and Kilmer's characters too, who were in a normal movie would kind of be just side characters. And it allows them to have great character arcs, I think. Sizemore, another actor who is super talented, but drugs and other issues got in the way, and his career kind of coattailed. He still does things, but just he was another actor who every performance he gave, Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, Heat, it was always fantastic. And he's so good in this movie, as well as, again, like I said, some of the supporting actors and Danny Trejo. Kevin Gage has a good role in this one. I don't know what else to say. It's just such a classic film. I've heard recently people go, oh, it doesn't really hold up. I'm like, it holds up. It's so good. The Pacino is really good. De Niro's probably better, I would say, but Pacino does give a really good performance. Natalie Portman, a young Natalie Portman, plays his child in this movie. So you kind of get to see her star kind of rise a little bit as she did this and Leon the Professional right around the same time. Yeah, I like I said, I don't know what else to say about this movie. If you don't like it, then fine. But if you haven't seen it, you need to see Heat. It has such a great climax ending, just kind of what you want in this type of movie. A great cat and mouse between De Niro and Pacino, and it's just two guys, like I said, on the same level, smart-wise, that are just kind of, it's coming to a head, and it's coming to a very bloody head. It's going to be bloody and violent, which is what I like. And with Michael Mann, you get the colors. Uses lots of darker colors, and he does that in this movie as well, which is funny because he created Miami Vice, which is probably one of the brightest shows ever created in the history of television. But all his movies are very dark, including the Miami Vice movie. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool flipping movie, and you need to see Heat. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it right now. Wayne, do you have any thoughts about this one?
I haven't seen the movie in a good 20 years, and it's another one that I need to review. So I'm looking forward to checking that out in the near future. But yeah, just when you talk about just action and just character, and you got your mega stars for the time. Mm-hmm. It checks every box for me, and I thinking about it, it's like, I'm sure you've been through this. Like, there's great films out there, and ones that you love, and you realize you haven't seen them in years. So it's like, damn, this is one I really got to check out. So
yeah, for sure.
A honey-do list this week, which I appreciate.
All right, so that's our heist movies. We're gonna move on into kind of a hybrid heist romance movie, if you will, with our review
of the week.
Yeah, so this week we are reviewing the brand new HBO Max original film called Lockdown, starring Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor, directed by Doug Liman, director of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Go and Swingers and many other hit films. This movie starts out, so we're going to review a couple movies that were shot during the pandemic. This will be our first one. It's not the first one that was made or released, though, as Michael Bay produced a movie that came out a couple weeks ago that was called, like, Pandemic or something, that was about the pandemic, or a different pandemic. This one is actually about COVID-19. It kind of starts in the early days of quarantine in London, like the first, 2-ish weeks or whatever, and they're already... So the main characters, which are Anne Hathaway, who plays Linda, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, who plays Paxton, they're husband and wife, but they're basically, their relationship at this point in the beginning of the movie is over. And so they're both kind of dreading the idea of having to spend a 2-week quarantine with each other, because they kind of hate each other at this point in time.
Naturally, how it happens in a breakup.
Yes. I would equate the first hour of this movie to, watching The Breakup, which a lot of people dislike. I thought it was a cool, realistic look at how a relationship works. It's not very funny, which is, I think, what people were hoping for. It's more of a drama. And I think this first hour, it's about a 2-hour movie, and I don't know if you agree with me, Wayne, but I think the first hour and the second hour are kind of two different films.
Yes, absolutely.
I think whether you like it or not, what you start with is you start with two really good performances from Chiwetel and Anne Hathaway. These people kind of you can tell they've gotten to a point where they just loathe each other. And they loathe not only each other, but who they've become while together.
Yeah. One of my the hardest thing for me is what the Linda character, Anne Hathaway, is having to go through work-wise, or she's the CEO of a company, letting people that she feels are no longer needed for their company go. Obviously, this hits close to home for both of us.
It does, yeah.
Because we both went through this with COVID-19, and I had a hard time feeling sorry for her, and I kind of I don't even want to watch this mess anymore, because it did what it was supposed to. It affected me.
Yeah.
But as a professional, I stuck it out, and I'm very glad that I did, because like you said, the second half of this movie, it really kind of morphs into okay, here we go.
Yes. It's the first hour is very much a romantic drama, and the second hour is very much a kind of lighthearted heist romp, and it's very funny. Throughout this movie, my opinion on this movie changed throughout the 2-hour runtime. I liked it when it started. probably about a half hour in, I'm like, okay, like when are we getting to the heist stuff? But then it started to get good again with the relationship stuff. And then when the heist stuff comes in, you're like, really, are we doing this now? But then as it gets going, like, it just kind of has a lot of starts and stops, I guess. And there's a lot of moments for me, at least, where I was like, I don't know, man. And then by the time this movie wrapped up, I was like, all right, I really kind of like this movie. Like, it was kind of very charming at the end, even with some of the simplicity of it. Like, this is what's different in this heist movie, Wayne, I think, than with most of our other ones that we talked about previously, is there aren't a lot of twists and turns in this one. It's basically, will they or won't they do it? And that's the big question. And what I did like too was, even though it was shot during COVID-19, they got a lot of known actors, to be on the Zoom calls or the FaceTimes that they shot for the movie. Just to mention Stephen Merchant, the British actor, he was actually in person too at one point. Mindy Kaling has a cameo. Lucy Boynton is one of the people I believe that she fires, or one of the people she meets later, maybe. Dule Hill and his wife Jasmine Simone play husband and wife, and it's his half brother, and they were really good too. I thought they were really fun to watch.
I know you haven't mentioned this guy yet, but Ben Kingsley.
Oh, Kingsley I didn't even know it was him.
Yeah, I hear you. Plays this perfectly. I like to start every call with the prayer. But we're totally going to rip people off and do illegal things.
Yes, exactly.
It reminds me of the mindset of one political party right now, who I'm not going to name, but yeah, I connected with that on not so good levels because
yes,
things. But we're not going to dwell on that. How about Ben Stiller, man?
Yeah.
The gray is like, and that's not a knock on him. He still looks phenomenal. It's just like it's like, wow, he's aged.
Yeah.
And I look at myself like, oh God, I have too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, what I loved about that scene too was his kid. His kid in the background putting the signs up that says F quarantine. That was great. I assume it was probably his kid, I would imagine, because that's the thing, is the reason Dule Hill and his wife were both in it. They're both actors. It's easier to be like, hey, can you and your wife do this movie so we don't have to get someone else to come to you during quarantine? And so him and his wife just did it. So I thought that was a really cool way to do it.
Little fact, sir. The reason Bernie Sanders was sitting like that at the inauguration was because the kid put that on a sign about Vermont.
That makes sense.
If you know, you know.
Bernie saw this movie ahead of time, guys. That's just how it is. Yeah, and Ben Kingsley, like I said, like obviously once I saw him, I knew it was him. But when he was just talking, I honestly didn't realize it was him. And I thought that was a cool little part there. Klaus Bang, he's Dracula on the Netflix Dracula series. He was the head of the company, like the president of the company that offers her the job in New York. And I thought he was pretty good. He basically wanted to sleep with her. That's why he was promoting her. Yeah, it was an interesting kind of back and forth between them. I think, and I get, Wayne, what you're talking about with like her having to fire those people. I think they did a good job though of telling you that she didn't really want to do this, but she had to. And so I didn't feel as negative towards her as more as I did towards the company, towards the fact that like Ben Stiller's character even tells her like, yeah, we fired all these people, but you're getting a promotion and a raise. Like that's the kind of shit that was going on at the beginning of quarantine. That was bullshit. When companies,
like I said, that's what happened to us.
Yes.
Without detail about, anything, crap like that.
But in the end, this movie, I think, is about a couple finding a way back to each other. And while that was maybe or maybe not doing a heist for a diamond, that's kind of what it's kind of like a sweet little rom-com, I guess, wrapped up in a romantic drama heist movie. I don't know. It's got a lot of the people either loved it or they hated it.
Yeah. And through the reviews right now, and there's one really positive one that's like an 8.5 out of 10, and they said that this is really an intellectual movie that you kind of have to think and absorb on.
Yeah.
It's true. If you're going into this thinking it's going to be like an Ocean's movie that's really edgy,
it's really not. Yeah.
And you have to really be in the correct mindset because
Now, I will say, to defend people that felt that way going into this movie, because I kind of felt that way too going in. I'm good at adjusting on the fly when it comes to watching a movie, though, with my expectations. The trailer really kind of made it seem like it was going to be like an Ocean's 11 type heist film. The way they hyped up the heist part of the movie, you expect it to be something from the beginning. But like I said, the heist part of the film doesn't really come in till much later. But it like I said, it is just a really fun, entertaining, enjoyable movie. I thought, at least, I had a good time with it.
Well, the Paxton and Linda, their performances get you through all the slow parts.
They do, yes, and
they actually force you to, they force it along in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, come on, it's gonna get better. We promise.
Yes.
It does.
One thing I want to talk about, and this is something that ever since we started this podcast that we've talked about, Wayne, is representation. And in this movie, you have a black male lead and a white female lead, which is something that we don't always see, and they are romantically involved. And it's an interracial relationship, which if people that know me, that's what I am in. I have a lot of mixed race kids, grandkids, a niece, and a brother-in-law. So that this kind of stuff is very important to me. And I think that was one of the highlights for me. Just the beginning of the movie, I was like, well, at least we have this. And another movie I watched recently, which wasn't a good movie, was Rhythm Section with Blake Lively, and is the same in that one. Her love interest is not Jude Law, which most people would expect. It's Sterling K. Brown from that TV show on NBC that everybody cries at. And that, to me, while the movie sucked, I was like, well, that's a positive. And this is a positive for this movie. And, people may, you're too woke or whatever. Like, you got to understand that this stuff hasn't happened for years. We're only about 16 years removed from the fact that Sandra Bullock was originally supposed to be in Hitch, but the studio thought that having a black guy and a white woman on screen together wouldn't be good for business. That's not that long ago. And obviously with the struggles that have been in this country over the last 4 years, where racism has been very heightened because of a certain person, we won't give him any power anymore because he's gone. Something like this is important to me and to people like me. So while it may not be important to you, just understand that there are people out there that kind of need to see a movie like this and understand that everybody is getting represented in some way or another. And I thought that was an important part to mention for this film.
Absolutely. That was one of the parts that made me really dislike the Linda character. It's like, okay, she's embarrassed of her partner. She's embarrassed of what her partner does. It's like, you're not making this character real likable right now.
That's true. I totally forgot about that. You're right. That is, she hides him, which is a very interesting trait. And the fact that he is a criminal, which is another interesting trait to write into casting a black person. But I think it overcomes a lot of that with just having this relationship be part of this cinema. I mean, again, something that we don't always see. Maybe we see more in television. We don't see it in movies a lot, or enough, I should say. So I took that as a positive. Maybe Paxton's character could have been written better, but that backstory of him being a criminal kind of plays into what happens further in the movie. And he's not like a career criminal. It was like someone pissed him off. Remember, someone like screwed him over and he beat the shit out of him and he got arrested for assault, I think is what it was.
The one-time heat of passion crime.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Define the rest of his life. I think that's actually a line that he's...
Yes. And even his wife, even though she knows that, she remembers her response is, well, he deserved it. So, like, there's that to it. Like, she got with him knowing that was part of his past. The problem with their relationship is the fact that what they talk about in the movie, which is really interesting, is it's not necessarily that they grew apart necessarily. I mean, that is part of it, but it was that he knew that he needed to become a different person, kind of not be that kind of rebel he was in the past. But when he became that rebel, not only did she not like him anymore, he didn't like himself anymore. And it's a really just interesting look at a relationship, I think. And especially, like we said, I'm sure there are so many people where being in quarantine has amplified their problems in their relationship. Luckily, I haven't really had that issue. I'm sure, Wayne, you haven't really had that issue, but we're kind of homebodies, right? We don't like go out a lot. So it's not surprising, I think, for people like us to not have those same issues. But if you're someone who likes to go out all the time, you go out with your friends and your wife and stuff, and you can't do that anymore, those problems then I think can surface. And that's what this movie kind of tackles.
Absolutely. Like we are very similar in the fact that our core, all of our family is very important. But wife and kids, they're sure. And yeah, if you're going out to alleviate problems or not, facing them, quarantine is gonna everything to a head real quickly. I mean, I don't know if you know anybody personally, but I know of at least 2 or 3 couples that are no longer together because they couldn't work their stuff out, and then they're 24/7 for months at a time. It didn't last. So
no, I don't really know them personally, but I'm not surprised because, like I said, I get that it's a lot of time. Unfortunately, I can't break up with my son. He's my son. He'd be the one who drove me the most insane during quarantine. But I love him as well. That's obviously a joke, so don't take that seriously, people. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a movie. It's enjoyable. It's entertainment. I think people will enjoy this one if they kind of just let it play out and don't think too much on it. Because we're not going to be talking about this one come Oscar time. You know what I mean? So it's a fun, entertaining film. And I think people can enjoy this one if they let themselves enjoy it.
It's a night, grab some hot chocolate. It's a rainy day. You don't want to go outside. Throw this on.
Yes. Agreed. All right. So before we get to our awfully good or just plain awful movie, I do want to mention some people that passed away this last week. Three's Company, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Dynasty actor Peter Mark Richmond, dead at 93. Baseball legend Hank Aaron, dead at 86. Mira Furlan, Lost in Babylon 5 actor, dead at 65. Legendary interviewer Larry King, dead at 87. And Walter Bernstein was one of the last blacklisted Hollywood screenwriters from the whole McCarthy era to be alive, dead at 101. So good on him. Lived a long time. All right. So this week's movie is
a little on the risque side. So.
It is. It's essentially people, before I give you the title and who's in it, it's essentially a soft-core porn parody movie, but with a lot of the softcore porn stuff left in. It stars and is directed by someone who I love and have loved for many years, Corey Feldman. Even though, yes, and it also stars Corey Haim, although minimally, and I will tell you why in when we get into it. It's called Busted. It's from 1997. Was it made for TV? Probably looks like it was made for Skinamax. What I imagine is it kind of went along with like, hey, this can play as one of our late night movies, but it's kind of a parody of those late night movies. It's like it wanted to be Hot Shots, but surrounded by softcore porn. So lots of like models and actresses from back then that did a lot of those movies. B movie legend Julie Strain, who just passed away a couple weeks ago. She has a small cameo in it. I mean, the main character is Corey Feldman the whole time. The other actors aren't really that important. I mean, they're fine. It's a movie that's kind of hard to watch at times because of how bad it can be. There is a charm to it, I would say. I don't know necessarily what the charm is, but it's there.
Come on. Tell me you sat through the roll call with a straight face.
Okay. I don't know. Like, it was just so... Some of it was so forced, though, too. But, I mean, and I chose this movie because I knew there was a movie that Corey Haim did that I hadn't seen that was like a thriller, but it was supposed to be awful. And I started watching, but I didn't finish it. So I just typed his name in, and this thing popped up first. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen this one or heard of it. So it's basically, the premise is that it's a police station in Amity, which is not a coincidence. They named it after the town in Jaws. There's actually a poster in the police station with a shark on it and the cross through it, like, no sharks allowed type thing. So they do have a little bit of fun with that. And so the police station is basically taken all the crime outside and turned it inside. So they run a brothel out of the police station. Everybody knows, the captain knows he's in on it. They're all in on it. They bring in a new captain who the mayor comes in and suspends the original captain. The mayor played by the late Rance Howard, who is the father of Ron Howard and Clint Howard. And just the stuff that ends up, it's just like so many favors were owed on this movie. You had Rance Howard, you had Elliot Gould, who comes in as like some cheap game show host at some point for the spoof parts. He was funny because Elliot Gould always gives 110%, and that's what he did in this movie, even though it was obviously a movie not needed to give 110% for. It is a bad movie. I will not sit here and tell you that it's a good movie. It's bad, and you kind of miss Corey Haim most of the time. The reason that he is not in this movie very much, Wayne, is that during production he had a drug problem. As many people know, he had that through most of his life, and Corey Feldman, unfortunately, in Corey Feldman's words, had to fire him. He said it was one of the hardest things he's had to do. So he's only in like 2 or 3 scenes that they had already shot. Most of the time, his character is Cliff, and they basically just write him out of the movie by saying, "Oh, Cliff's down dealing with the pipes," and then at the end of the movie, "Oh, where'd Cliff go? Oh, he quit." So that was kind of sad because I was hoping to see the Feldman-Haim team up that I was promised by the cover, or at least because it says Corey Feldman and Corey Haim's names right on the front, and I assume that Haim, even though he got fired because they used some of his scenes, that was probably part of his contract that he had to be second billing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked a lot, Wayne. You tell me what you thought about this movie.
I laughed a lot about at the ridiculousness of it. I mean, there's a lot of TNA. So if you're in the mood for that, I guess.
If you don't mind seeing Corey Feldman's ass quite often, then I would say check it out.
Yeah, well, there's hey.
There's a lot of nudity, people. So
yeah.
This is not one for the kiddies. There's a lot of
really corny, deliberate, obvious jokes. That
yes.
Again, this is not as good as some of the good bad movies that we talked about in recent weeks, but it's another one you can put on when you're having some lighthearted people over goofing around. I guess these movies with a lot of nudity and TNA on situations make me uncomfortable to watch with other people. Oh, look, we're 4 dudes sitting in a room.
Well, and especially because, like I said, even though it was a parody of softcore porn, they really lingered on the softcore porn stuff because they knew that's what people were going to be coming for. No pun intended. Or maybe so. But I'd say here's my reason to watch it would be if you're a Feldman-Haim completist and you need to see every movie they've done, then watch it. If you're not, probably stay clear. It wasn't enjoyable enough for me personally, and I'm a huge fan of theirs. There were moments where I just like wanted to shut it off, but I'm like, I gotta finish it. I'm the one that chose this movie. I have to finish it. But yeah, I mean, there are, again, like Wayne said, there are some entertaining parts. Just overall, it's just kind of a cluster.
I have a question for you. Have you seen National Lampoon's Last Resort?
Yes, I believe so. At least once.
Okay. If you had to choose between watching this one and watching...
Are they both in Last Resort?
Yes.
I would say Last Resort, probably.
I would say too. This was just too much raunch to the extreme, like we talked about, so...
I think it was like Feldman trying to go into a more adult comedy area, and it just didn't work that well. And the whole part, like when he was in the scene with the 2 girls in the shower and they were all completely naked, I was like, is this how he got his Corey Feldman's angels? Because like that's all I thought of. I was like, this is just so strange.
But this is your directorial debut, bro. I mean, why don't you tone it down just a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, I think it was obvious who the audience was, and they let him do what he wanted to do because they knew they're like, as long as there's enough TNA, you can do whatever you want, and that's I think what happened. But yeah,
trying to get your foot in the door as a director or a producer, and this is what the studio asks you to do. This is what you give them. I mean,
yeah, I think.
Obviously, it didn't really work out. It didn't launch his career like I'm sure he wanted to.
No, and some
sort.
Too many dissolves in between the nude scenes too. By the way, like I was like, that's why I kind of wanted to call it a no-core porno because there was like I felt like they had the nudity, but then they kind of covered it up a lot with the soft dissolves that they did that lasted like 30 seconds. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna make a movie for that purpose, at least show off what you're making it for. Anyway, Busted.
So, yeah, I think we're in agreement. Just plain awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Some, like I said, some entertainment value to it, but overall, just plain awful. All right, so I'm going to talk about just a couple things that I have watched this week, and then we'll wrap up. Let's see. The main thing, Wayne, I finished finally Sons of Anarchy again for the second time. Just a fantastic show. One of my favorites. Heartbreaking at the end. The final scene is just gut-wrenching if you know the show and you know the characters.
I think I still, it's like, there had to be a better way, Jax. Come on, man.
Well, what I hope, so we're already, this is the 7th year that it hasn't been on the air. So we're going to get to a point where it's going to be okay and make sense to do a sequel series of his kids. Because they're going to be mathematically at an age where they would kind of be starting getting into this. Maybe they want to wait till they're like both in their 20s or something. I don't know. So one of them could be like a lawyer or something. But I really would love to see a sequel series of his kids and the remaining sons, like Chibs and Tig and Happy, which I haven't watched second season of Mayans yet, so I'm using Happy as people. If people have seen Mayans, they know Happy's in it and they know a role that he plays in it.
Their inclusion exists in the season. That's all I will say.
So I really hope they consider either doing a sequel series or, as we've talked before and it has been talked about, are the first 9 series, which I think would be kind of a cool beginning. And there's a lot you could tell there. I
would like to see the first 9 and then lead into the Sons sequel.
Yeah. I think that would be a good way to do it. Or maybe...
Now, Kurt Sutter, I'm talking to you right now, sir. First 9...
Give the people what they want, Kurt.
Great job with Mayans, so I'm looking forward to season 3 for that. Yeah, fantastic. Gosh, I'm reminiscing right now. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. So I also watched Outside the Wire with Anthony Mackie and Rhythm Section with Blake Lively, which I just talked about. Not a huge fan of either one of them. What I liked about Outside the Wire, obviously the fact that it stars Anthony Mackie, and he needs to be in more things. Like, he is a great actor. He can lead a movie. As I just said, watched Synchronic. He was fantastic. I'm excited for Falcon and Winter Soldier. Give that guy more work. I don't think Outside the Wire worked as well as it should have, but there are some good moments for it. Rhythm Section, same thing. Like, not a great movie. Some good action sequences for Blake Lively. Love the romance part between her and Sterling K. Shepard, like I said before. But could have been a better movie. One I really liked this week that I watched was called Spree. And the problem I have with it is I think it's very similar to something like American Psycho. And I think people will start to idolize the character more than they should. I think, Wayne, you kind of know what I'm talking about. When there's a character that's really bad and kind of entertaining to watch in a movie, but then when people start to like idolize these characters, Clockwork Orange is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, it's funny you bring that up because I just watched the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, and how people were like in love with this guy. Like, women were sending him nude photos, and it's like, this is a serial killer that went after children, folks.
Yes.
The fuck.
Yeah. Well, Ted Bundy. I mean, just recently with the movie with Zac Efron and the documentary series, people were all thirsting over Ted Bundy, and it's like, calm down, everybody. Like,
listen, some of them a bitch, man. I'm sorry.
But it's a good movie, and I think people should watch it. It's on Hulu. It basically takes the idea of social media pushing someone so far as to get views, so he starts murdering people. That's the premise. He's a spree driver, which is basically like Uber or Lyft, but he sets it up. He's got cameras all in his car, and he starts poisoning people, and then he starts murdering other people in certain ways and stuff. It's a very interesting movie. It's fun and funny at times, just like American Psycho and stuff like that. Very demented. Yeah, good movie though. Watch. It's got Joe Keery from Stranger Things. It's a star role for him. It was kind of a genre hit in 2020. Just hit Hulu. Check it out. Kindred Spirits from my guy Lucky McKee. Did the movie May. I've talked about that on here. The Woman, I talked about that. It's kind of like a TV movie, but it's still really good. It's like a Single White Female, Wayne, something like that.
Nice.
An aunt becomes obsessed with her niece and wants to become her niece, therefore trying to move her out of the way and have her sister be her mother. It's a weird story. Thora Birch from American Beauty is in it as the mother. And then I'm not sure where the sister and the niece are from. They're also really good. Macon Blair, who's going to be directing the new Toxic Avenger movie, is an actor as well. He was in it. He was really good in it. It's a cool movie. It's on Hulu. The ending is a little bit anticlimactic, I think, because it wrapped it up really quickly. You kind of can tell it probably aired on TV first because it was like, oh, we have to wrap this up. But it's still a solid horror thriller. I think people should check out. One that was kind of disappointed by was Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. It's one of the few Ang Lee movies I haven't seen. He did it right after, not right after, but it was his follow-up movie to Life of Pi, which I loved. And this movie was just kind of a letdown. Again, like Gemini Man, he tried to do a lot of cool things cinematically. It's shot in 3D. It's shot with IMAX cameras, but it's basically a drama. So there's not a lot, even though it's based on like a book about a war hero. It's fictional, but the character is a war hero. There isn't a lot of war action and stuff in it. Vin Diesel's in it for all of like 5 minutes. He's the character that died while the guy was trying to save him.
Did he live a quarter mile at a time?
Yeah, he did. It didn't last very long. It just, one of the weird things, Wayne, is they shot a lot of the 3D character scenes, them facing the camera. So it was like, the video games where you're the character, so they face you. It was like that, but they were talking to another character, even though it feels like they're talking to you. It was very off-putting, and it didn't work. Chris Tucker's in it. Garrett Hedlund is in it as well. There's a bunch of other actors people will recognize as well. Steve Martin plays the douchebag owner of the generic football team in Dallas. I wonder who they were trying to make him look like. It was just, it was a lot of like good technical things and just not a lot of good story, which is kind of what Gemini Man struggled from too. And this one was worse. I really recommend Gemini Man just for the artistic look of it. This one, he tried a lot of things I think that just did not work. But that's it. That's what I've watched this week. Wayne, what you got anything for us?
I am starting season 3 of Dexter. This is Jimmy Smith's season.
Love me some Jimmy Smiths, damn it.
Absolutely. Sons, man.
Yep. Niro.
Yep. Fantastic. So I'm working my way through that. I finished Dawson's Creek, so that was my emotional little reminisce through my, late teens and early 20s. That's about it. I'm still watching The Wonder Years here and there. I'm in the last season. That is an emotional, sprinkling here and there when they're talking about whatever the particular issue was in the episode. You always get that nice narration at the end from Daniel Stern about this is what I learned and how I feel and how it's affected me. And it truly was The Wonder Years. What would you do? Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Cool. I do also want to mention I watched the 3rd episode of WandaVision, and that show is fantastic. People should get on this because it's really good. They're only about half-hour episodes. Really fun.
And I'm just not interested. I don't know. I'll get around to it.
Telling you, man, you love sitcoms. That's basically based on sitcoms. I think you would dig it. Like this last episode was a mixture of Brady Bunch, and they even shot it's got like the Brady Bunch staircase, and it's really creative how they do it and how they're working the Marvel universe into this setting. I really recommend it for people that want more Marvel because we haven't had it since 2019. This is our first Marvel stuff from the MCU that we've gotten in almost 2 years. So
2019 is like, it's 2 years ago. It's like, holy what?
I know. It's crazy. 2020 is the only year where we didn't have any MCU thing released. So that in itself is kind of nuts. All right, I'm going to get on to the news of the movies, and we'll wrap this up here. All right, Master of None, which is a great show on Netflix. It ran 2 seasons. There's rumor that they're going to be doing a 3rd season, which I'm very excited for. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory prequel is in the works at Warner Brothers. Matt Damon rumored to be in Thor 4, so I don't know if he'd be reprising his role as the actor who plays Loki in Thor Ragnarok, but that would be kind of fun if he did. And then Godzilla vs. Kong trailer just came out, and man, it looks epic.
I can't wait for that.
If you want to see the scene, Wayne, did you watch the trailer?
Not yet, no.
Oh, there's a scene in it that's just amazing. All right, movies coming out. Nomadland to hit Hulu February 19th. The Crew series with Kevin James about NASCAR crew will hit Netflix February 15th. Bliss with Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek hits Amazon Prime on February 5th. It's a movie. Judas and the Black Messiah moved up to February 12th. Theaters and HBO Max same day. I'm assuming that's to get pushed for the Oscars. Lakeith Stanfield is in that, as well as Daniel Kaye from Black Panther and Get Out. I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not going to try butchering it. The other thing I want to mention, February is Black History Month. We are going to start off next week doing Denzel Washington movies as we review his brand new movie, The Little Things, which hits theaters and HBO Max next Friday. And I've got some other great ideas to do for Black History Month that we will discuss other directors and actors and stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So hang on with us for that. And that's basically it for this week. So we appreciate everyone kind of staying with us through 31 episodes. And we look forward to doing a lot more. You can follow us at Now Showing with Mike and Wayne at Facebook and Instagram, at now_Wayne on Twitter. Email us at nowshowingwithmikeandwayne@gmail.com. My personal information is We Are Screwed 2 on Twitter, Mike1830 on Instagram, Mike Kirkpatrick at Mike Kirkpatrick on Facebook. Wayne is at Wayne Yerke on Facebook and Twitter, at Wayne_Yerke on Instagram. Find us at Entertainment Buffet's YouTube page. Watch all their other content. Lots of fun stuff going on there. For Wayne Yerke, I am Mike Kirkpatrick. Thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.